So tonight, I'm going to be talking about payroll systems. So just to clarify, because I realized when I posted the question earlier today that there might be some misunderstanding. So I'm only doing the review in Shamika's take about payroll systems internally. So these would be the systems where probably Sandra used an internal system. Jarvis says he still uses his internal system where you're actually doing the payroll yourself. And when I say yourself, I'm not speaking specifically to you as an individual, as well as much as you're doing it, your company is doing it internally. So it could be you, an administrative assistant, an accounting assistant, a partner, somebody who actually works for your organization is managing and processing your payroll. So, and at a later date, we'll definitely look at some systems you can outsource and maybe have a representative from one of those places talk a little bit more. Okay. Yes, Jarvis, you can message me. I think one of your questions did go up today. I would have to double check, but you can message me later. That's fine. Okay, so you use QuickBooks. Okay, so great. To lead into that, so the two systems that I'm going to do my take on and kind of give you my review and my feedback about are going to be Intuit, which is a part of the QuickBooks package, as well as ADP Run, which is a part of I think it's a smaller part of the bigger ADP system. So our organization uses QuickBooks, Intuit, and it's a platform that you have online, and all of the platforms look the same from an online perspective. They all kind of have all the features where you can access different employees, as well as being able to access some sort of reporting system. So I'm really just going to speak about the pros and the cons, just because most of those systems kind of look the same from a visual standpoint of view as far as like a desktop view. So for us, one of the reasons that we chose Intuit is because we also use QuickBooks for our accounting, for our business. And, of course it was offered, and it was also, kind of a complementary platform that helped us as far as making sure the other side of the business with regards to the accounting piece was taken care of as well. Some of the features that I like that are probably very similar in ADP is that, they handle all the payroll taxes. The information flows into the accounting QuickBooks system. So some of your information will flow in fairly easily, as well as you have access to a payroll specialist. And essentially that's kind of a customer service person, but a little bit more so they can walk you through, like if you were having issues with running payroll for that particular week, they can kind of walk you through any challenges that you might be having and resolve them. So it's kind of like a help desk for Intuit. So that was definitely one of the features that I liked. As well, I also like the option that they gave where you can cut a check. So if you did have employees, you could cut a check for them. Now, if you are using the system, it's kind of counterproductive to be cutting checks, but it's an option. And I did like that feature. And for them, they did charge an additional fee to do those things. So it wasn't something that we did on a regular basis. But if there were instances where we wanted to do it, it was a nice added feature. Like I mentioned before, you can put the information information regarding your business into QuickBooks. And then you can also have the reporting option, so you can run different reports. Some of the cons that I've found in working with Intuit is that there still is a manual process as far as entering your time into or employees' time into the system. And I feel like that kind of opens the doors for errors and miscalculations, especially when you're dealing with employees who are working out of state, and you have to get the flow of hours from a second source. So it's not a direct system. So that was kind of one of the cons that I didn't like, as well as the fact that there was a fee involved with cutting a paper check, just because I think that that should just be something that should be offered to companies. It shouldn't be an additional feature, just because there's always going to be an instance where you might have to cut a check from a business standpoint of view. So that's a little bit about Intuit as well. From a price standpoint of view, they do have a couple of different packages, and most of them are based on a kind of like a standard package where you can just have access to the system and run your payroll, but also if you had additional users. So we have 2 users. So the more users that you have accessing the system, the additional cost. And it was set up in a monthly cost for us that, of course, you always have the option to pay yearly, but it was a monthly fee. I like and then a couple other things, was just I like the next business day, it would update. So it would update and do like an error check for us. So that was good as well. I believe that's the same option that you have in ADP. Okay. So, so that's kind of my review on Intuit. Intuit also offers a free trial, as does the ADP Run. So a little bit about ADP Run. So I just did the free trial with ADP Run and kind of, some other research on it. So I didn't actually use the system. So I'm only familiar with it from just kind of browsing through it. And what I was able to find out was that ADP Run, very similar to Intuit, where there's a desktop platform. Some of the features were very, very similar, where you have the processing of the payroll. They'll file the taxes and things of that nature for you, which is something that Intuit offers through QuickBooks. But one of the features that was different was that ADP Run had a element of it that allowed you to add on services, which is similar to maybe a PEO that Brian talked about last week, a professional employer organization. So you could add on as a business, say human resources services, or you can add on an accountant services through ADP. So that was kind of one of the differences, which was nice. I mean, they spoke about being able to set up, employees' handbooks, tracking leave and other information, which is good to have as a small business, kind of have an easy, accessible tracking system. Some of the other things they had the same setup as far as a support system. And they had one of the features that they had that Intuit didn't have, or we didn't use with Intuit, was the clock in and clock out. So most people know ADP as a system for their clock in and clock out piece. And with that being the case, they kind of set up their system where the information from the ADP flows from the time clock into your actual desktop or your platform. So if you have employees working and they're clocking in and out in the ADP on their phone, those hours that they clock in and out would flow into the ADP system. So I love that feature. I thought that was a great feature. And then the other part was, it was user friendly, and then there was an app connected. So it kind of helped everything stay together. With the clock in and clock out piece, I'm not sure if it matters if your people had to also clock in at a facility, which is the case for us. It would just mean that the employee would clock in twice. And then they also had a reporting option, the clock in and clock out feature, and then they also had the support system where you can call and ask any questions. I wasn't sure. I didn't get a chance to find out whether or not you could cut a check, but I'm gonna go ahead and assume so, yes. And then as far as the rates were concerned for ADP, you had to contact someone directly, but the rates were comparable, a little bit higher than what Intuit offered, but kind of in the range, just because ADP offers more add-on services. So with the additional services, you would pay a little bit extra, or just kind of having access to those services, you typically pay a little bit extra. that was kind of my take on it. So, to which system would I prefer? I think I would probably still prefer Intuit, just because Intuit also integrates a little bit better with more scheduling systems than ADP, because ADP wants you to use their systems. So I definitely like that flexibility, but I would also probably prefer having an app versus having to manually enter hours into the system, which is what we've been doing. And mostly because our people clock in and out at the facility at this time. So we use those hours for our employees. So I would still use Intuit. I think ADP Run is probably a great option for a newer business. And some of it may also depend on, you know, what accounting system that you're using for your business. You know, how involved you'll be in that process, because a big part of payroll is the accounting piece and making sure you're accounting for proper taxes, unemployment, and things of that nature, workers' comp, and all of those things. So I think that might weigh your decision a little bit. And like I said, there are a whole bunch of other systems out there, as well as there are a lot of options regarding if you choose to outsource. So just kind of in general, a lot of reasons why people don't do their payroll in-house is because it can be time consuming. Typically, doing payroll internally can take the entire day. So if I'm sure Sandra would agree, that's what she said earlier, and Jarvis, especially in the earlier stages. And it also depends on how much volume or how many people are working for the organization. It might take more than a day. And this is all assuming that you're not running into any issues. So that's usually why people would consider outsourcing it. But sometimes people want to keep it internally because you want to kind of have a better handle over the day-to-day. Hi, Wendy. You want to kind of have a better handle over the day-to-day flow. You know, if you maybe have people working a consistent schedule, like if you have 5 nurses or 5 CNAs or techs or what have you working 20 hours a week every week, you may not need a outsourced payroll system. But if you have, you know, travelers and people working per diem and people working contracts and out of state and different payroll elements happening at the same time, that might lead to better, it might be more beneficial to you to outsource the payroll systems. So, all right. So that's all I had for regarding that. So if you guys have any questions, definitely let me know.